You know, over the decades, I've noticed something very interesting. We often measure growth by what we achieve on the outside. A bigger house, a more stable job, a larger savings account. Maybe you've thought that way too, haven't you? That if you could just have a little more success, a little more recognition, or a little more wealth, then you would finally feel peaceful. Finally, feel happy. But after more than 60 years of living, I've discovered a very different truth. Real growth, true wisdom, doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. And one of the most important doors that leads us into that growth is learning how to set boundaries. I want you to think back to the last time you felt drained, not because of hard physical work, but because of relationships. Maybe you said yes to an invitation you didn't want to accept simply because you were afraid of disappointing someone. Maybe you took on more responsibility than you could handle, not because you wanted to, but because you feared letting others down. Have you ever had that feeling? That moment when every part of you wanted to say no, but your mouth quietly whispered yes. I've been there too. When I was younger, I thought being kind meant agreeing to everything. I didn't want anyone to be upset. I didn't want anyone to feel disappointed. But the older I grew, the more I realized sometimes the truest form of kindness is the courage to say no. Because when we refuse to set boundaries, we end up trading our peace just to buy comfort for someone else. And sooner or later, that trade will leave us empty. I remember a woman who once came to me for advice. She was about 55 at the time, and she had been through a lot in life. For years, she lived to please everyone around her. Whatever her children wanted, she said yes. Whatever her neighbors asked, she agreed. Whatever her friends needed, she was always there. On the surface, it looked noble, even selfless. But one day, she sat in front of me with tears in her eyes and a trembling voice. I don't even know what my own life is anymore. I feel like a shadow in my own home. That sentence struck me like a bell in my heart. It made me wonder how many of us are living exactly like that. How many of us have lost ourselves simply because we've never dared to draw the lines we need. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out. They are maps that help people understand you. Think of it like the house I'm sitting in right now. You might invite many people onto the porch where conversations are light and easy. A smaller circle might come into the living room where things get more personal. But only those you truly trust receive the key to your bedroom, the place where you rest, where you heal, where you wear no masks. And yet so often we throw open the bedroom door of our soul, letting just anyone walk in. We allow others to step into our most private spaces, to influence our emotions, to control our choices, and eventually to steal the peace that should belong only to us. And the sad truth is, we don't do it because we want to. We do it because we're afraid. Afraid of being called selfish. Afraid of being labeled unkind. Afraid of losing someone's affection. I want you to picture this. You have a small garden behind your house. If you let anyone walk through it, trampling flowers, breaking branches, pulling up plants, that garden will soon turn to ruin. But if you put up a fence, not to shut people out, but to protect what matters, then that garden will bloom, thrive, and share its fragrance. Your soul is that garden. It too needs the protection of boundaries. When I started setting boundaries, I noticed something. Some people got upset, even walked away. But with time, I realized something powerful. The ones who left had never truly been there for love. They were there for their own gain. The ones who truly cared about me didn't just stay, they respected my boundaries more than ever. And here's the beauty of it. Boundaries don't just protect you, they teach others how to love you the right way. If you don't set boundaries, you're teaching people that it's okay to treat you carelessly. But if you protect your peace, you're showing them, this is how I deserve to be treated. There's a study in psychology I love. It shows that people who learn to say no at the right times report lower stress, stronger emotional resilience, and greater satisfaction with life. Just one little word no can save both your mental and physical health. So I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, this past week, did I ever say yes when my heart wanted to say no? Did I let someone step too far into my private garden, leaving me drained and exhausted? If your answer is yes, then maybe it's time to start building that fence around your inner garden. And remember, this setting boundaries isn't a one-time task. It's a lifelong practice. Just like exercising your body, you need patience to train your spirit to say no. At first it feels awkward. You may feel guilty. You may worry. You may feel selfish. But with time, you'll discover that the guilt is only a shadow, while the peace you gain is the real light. I still remember when I turned 50, I started saying no much more often. Some friends complained, saying I had changed, saying I had become less approachable. But the ones who truly knew me, they smiled and said, "At last you've learned how to take care of yourself." And I realized saying no isn't about closing your heart. It's about opening it in a wiser, healthier way. You might be thinking, but if I set boundaries, won't I lose the love of others? And here's what I want you to remember. True love doesn't vanish just because you protect yourself. It only vanishes if it was fragile to begin with, if it existed only on the condition of your constant sacrifice. So when you dare to set boundaries, you don't just find inner peace. You also discover a smaller but much safer circle of people who love you in the right way. And I believe with all my heart that this is one of the greatest gifts adulthood can offer us. You know, one of the most common mistakes I see in people both young and old is that we're often too quick to share our plans. I call it the seed-showing disease. You plant a seed in the soil, but instead of letting it take root and grow, you dig it up every day just to show it off. And what happens? The seed dies. Plans, goals, or dreams are just like those seeds. If you share them too soon, you open yourself up to doubt, criticism, or worse, someone might take your idea and run with it before you even get started. I once watched a friend of mine full of passion share his business idea with a few acquaintances. At first, everyone seemed supportive, but soon after, one of them took that exact idea, acted on it, and succeeded before my friend even had the chance to begin. When he told me about it, he was devastated, and I said to him, "Dreams need protection, just like a newborn child. You can't expose them to the cold world and expect them to thrive. You have to nurture them quietly and patiently until they're strong enough to stand on their own." Let me ask you, have you ever regretted speaking too soon about your plans? If so, take it as a reminder. Silence can sometimes be your greatest ally on the road to success. And speaking of silence, let's talk about another subject: your private life. We live in a time when everything can be shared with a single click. Social media has turned life into a stage where everyone can play the role of actor. But let me be honest with you, not everything needs to be performed on that stage. I've seen families fall apart over things that were small at first, but became destructive once they were exposed in public. A mother vents about an argument with her child. A husband complains about a fight with his wife. What seemed harmless at first became fuel for gossip, criticism, and eventually caused deep wounds to the people they loved most. Family, friends, love. These are not reality shows for the world to judge. They are sacred, and we must protect them by keeping certain things private. A student of mine once asked me, "But if I don't share, won't I feel lonely?" And I told him, "You can share, but choose the right person, a trusted friend, a mentor, a loved one. Not the whole world." There are some things that lose strength the more you speak of them, and there are others that grow deeper the more you keep them close to your heart. Privacy is one of those things. Now let's touch on another sensitive area: money. I've lived long enough to know that money makes people uneasy. You might have been close to someone for years, but the moment you brag about your wealth, or even complain about your debts, the balance shifts. Some people start to envy you. Others look down on you with pity, and some might even try to take advantage. I remember a colleague of mine who, after retiring, constantly talked about how much he had in his pension fund, how many properties he owned. At first, people listened, but over time, his friends drifted away, and even his own family started coming to him only when they needed loans. Eventually, he confessed to me, "I wish I had stayed quiet from the beginning." The truth is, money doesn't need to be proven with words. Let it show in your peace of mind, in the simple yet fulfilling way you live, in the sparkle of your eyes that comes from not worrying every single day. That is the real sign of success. And now let me take you into a subtler but equally important territory: your fears and personal failures. We all have them. I do too. But the question is, who do you share them with? Because if you open up to the wrong person, your fears can be turned into weapons against you. I once knew a young man who admitted his weaknesses to his coworkers. He thought he was just being honest. But when the chance for promotion came, those very colleagues used his words against him and he was pushed aside. That's why I often say, share your fears and failures only with people who truly want to see you grow. Perhaps a mentor, a counselor, or a close friend. Because these people won't use your wounds to hurt you, they'll help you heal. You might be wondering, but should I ever share my failures with the public? My answer is yes, but only after you've stood up again. Only when you've learned the lesson and can transform the story into inspiration for others. If you share failure while you're still drowning in it, people may pity or mock you. But if you share it once you've overcome it, your story becomes light for someone else's path. The same is true for negative thoughts. All of us have dark days. But if you unload all of that negativity onto the people around you sooner or later, they'll feel drained and walk away. I had an old friend who would call me constantly, always to complain, to blame, to pour out endless frustration. At first I listened because I cared, but after a while I found myself avoiding his calls. I just didn't have the strength to carry his darkness for him. So when your mind feels heavy, find healthier outlets. Write in a journal. Take a walk outside. Breathe deeply. Don't turn others into dumping grounds for your negativity. Instead, let them see that you are making the effort to rise above it. Sometimes even your silence is a way of protecting the relationship. And one more thing I want to emphasize for those listening today, don't be too eager to brag about unfinished achievements. I've met countless people who love to say they are about to start a company, almost done writing a book, or preparing to launch a big project. And yet, many of those things never see the light of day. Do you know what happens each time they lose a little credibility, not only with others, but with themselves? Remember this, your true value doesn't lie in what you are about to do, but in what you have already accomplished. An achievement matters only once it has bloomed, not while it's still a bud waiting for the sun. You see, everything I have shared, from protecting your plans, guarding your privacy, keeping your fears safe, to managing negativity, all leads to one single door, inner peace. And I believe as we step into our 40s, 50s, and 60s, peace is the gift we long for more than anything else. My dear friend, we have walked a long road together in today's conversation. I've shared with you about the things we should not expose, about keeping our plans and dreams private, about the necessity of silence, of boundaries, of self-respect in the smallest details of life. And now as we pause at the end of this journey, I want to invite you to take a deep breath and ask yourself, among all the things I've just heard, what touched my heart the most? Which lesson do I need to apply right away in my own life? Because you see, knowledge is abundant. Advice is everywhere. But if you don't turn it into action, it's nothing more than words scattered in the wind. I've seen so many people read dozens of books, listen to countless talks, fill pages with notes, yet their lives hardly change. Why? Because they stop at knowing, but never truly begin living what they know. I want you to remember, this maturity doesn't come from collecting more knowledge, but from practicing the right things, even the smallest ones, every single day. Start with silence when needed. Tomorrow, if you're about to tell someone about a new plan, try keeping it to yourself just once and see how that feels. Or when a fear rises up, instead of rushing to share it with people you can't fully trust, find a quiet place, open a notebook, and write it down. Write for yourself, not for the world. I recall a small story about an elderly neighbor of mine. She is 68 this year. For years, she shared her family life on social media, every little joy, every marital quarrel. But instead of receiving empathy, she faced gossip, ridicule, and at times, her family became the subject of public laughter. One day, she decided to stop. She told me, I realized that some joys I can just keep in my heart, and some sorrows I can whisper only to God. Not everything needs to be told to the world. Since then, her face has looked brighter, calmer, and I believe we can all learn from her to keep part of our lives just for ourselves, so it becomes a sanctuary of peace that no one else can touch. Another important truth. True freedom comes from within, not from the recognition of others. You may be praised by society, But if you are still haunted by the gaze of others, you are not free. On the other hand, you can live a quiet life unknown to most. And yet if you feel complete, needing no proof, that is true freedom. I know sometimes this is very hard. Society always demands proof. Friends flaunt achievements. Colleagues flaunt wealth. Children flaunt progress. It's easy to get caught up in that cycle, constantly needing to show that we are not less than others. But do you remember what I said at the beginning? True maturity is not success on the outside, but peace on the inside. Picture this. A late afternoon, you sit on your porch with a cup of hot tea watching the sunset. No one is cheering. No one is taking pictures. No one knows about this moment, but you feel at peace. Your breath is light. Is that not more valuable than 1,000 likes on social media? I believe it is. And if you agree with me, then starting today, begin practicing to live for that peace. Don't rush to show the sprouts of your dreams. Don't let your fears become chains in someone else's hands. Don't expose your shadows to the whole world. Instead, choose to keep, to nurture, to protect, so that one day you can share the harvest with a smile, not with unfinished promises. I want you to ask yourself 3 questions right now. Is there something in my life I've shared too much that I now need to keep for myself? Is there a plan I am nurturing that I should protect in silence until it is strong enough? And is there a relationship in my life where I need to set boundaries to preserve respect and peace? If you can answer these 3 questions, you have already begun the journey back to yourself. My dear friend, at 60, I no longer dream of great things like I did at 20. I no longer crave for the world to know my name. What I want is simply a peaceful morning, a leisurely afternoon, a few true friends who understand me, and moments like this, sitting and sharing with you. And I believe many of you are searching for the same. So don't let life slip away because you're too busy proving, showing off, or seeking recognition. Let life flow in wholeness, in the peace that you cultivate through small choices each day. Before we end, I want to remind you of one last thing. Learn to be silent so you can hear yourself. In today's noisy world, the inner voice is often the hardest to hear. But it is the only compass that can lead you to true peace. Don't neglect it just because you are too busy listening to the noise outside. If what I've shared today resonates with you, I invite you to take a little time after this video. Turn off your phone. Sit still, close your eyes and ask yourself, what truly matters to me? I believe you'll be surprised by the answer. And if you feel this journey has meaning, I warmly invite you to walk with me further. Share your thoughts in the comments below, because I truly want to hear your story. Have you ever made the mistakes I've mentioned? Have you ever regretted sharing too much? Are you seeking to reclaim peace for yourself? Let's share so that we are not just speaker and listener, but a community learning and growing together. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button because I have more stories, more lessons I want to bring to you. Who knows, one quiet afternoon, you may open this channel and find exactly what you need to feel lighter, calmer. My friend, time always passes and we are always growing older. But maturity, true maturity, is something that is never too late. I am 60 and I am still learning, still adjusting, still choosing more turbulence, more keeping more peace. And so can you. Thank you for staying until the very end of this conversation. I look forward to meeting you again in the next sharing, where we will sit down once more like old friends with a cup of tea and talk about the things that truly matter in life.